For all your TCG needs, make sure to check out sabatcg.com. What's poppin', everybody? It's the Saber94. Gonna be talking about Dark Souls 3 today. I've been playing the game since August on and off, and overall the different files I've made so far, I got over 300 hours. So I think it's finally time to talk about it. You can sort of treat this video as a review/rant about the game, since I'm going to be talking about a lot of the gameplay aspects of it. But what I aim to do in this video is to compare it to Bloodborne and Elden Ring, the FromSoftware games that I played before this game actually. So to start things off chronologically, this game came right after Bloodborne in 2016. And it kind of shows in ways, especially in terms of the sound effects. If you played both games, you'll notice they pretty much share a lot of similar sound effects. And the voice actors too, FromSoftware usually, they use a lot of the same voice actors between their games for the NPCs. So that's the kind of the most obvious stuff. Now, gameplay-wise, this game, to be honest, it kind of feels like, this might be a mean way to say it, but it almost feels like a crappier, sort of different, but ultimately crappier version of Elden Ring. After you play Elden Ring and then you go back to this, it just feels like a smaller Elden Ring that you don't have the horse to ride around. And I'm not trying to say this is a bad game. This is a very good game, especially when you consider that it actually came like 6 or 7 years before Elden Ring. When did Elden Ring come out? I think in 2021 or 2022. But, Bloodborne, it kind of does its own thing. It plays much differently than both of those games. I mean, they're all FromSoftware games. But Bloodborne, it has the rally system. It has, when you dash forward, you don't roll, you actually dash. It's a much more aggressive, fast-paced game. And it's simpler in the sense that it doesn't have all the RPG elements. It's got less stats for you to upgrade and worry about. So, ultimately, the combat in Bloodborne is always just going to make more sense to me. With this game and Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3 is a much, much bigger game than Bloodborne. But they also did it in a kind of, there's a lot of places in this game, like let's say the stage of Izalith, where they're big, really big stages for not really much reason, that you would think you'd need like the horse, just like in Elden Ring, to just traverse them effectively. So this sort of, copy-pasted, I guess, tiles like that to make the game bigger. Also, a lot of the big stages, it's just a bunch of corridors and it feels kind of cheap. Like the skeleton stage as well, the Izalith stage, once again, it's corridors, long corridors. And I don't know, maybe the old Dark Souls games were like that too, because I didn't play the older ones. Yeah, it just once again feels like a very big game that a lot of the times is big for no reason. You need to walk around and waste time walking around without much reason. And again, it feels like Elden Ring without the horse sometimes. It does have a fast travel system though, compared to Bloodborne. You always just gotta go back to the main hub world, like the Hunter's Dream, and then go to a different place. With this game, at any bonfire, you can just choose whatever location you want to go, and then you can go. Bloodborne, I guess if you add the Chalice dungeons, you could say it's as long as this game, or maybe longer, but the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne is also one of the weakest parts for me. Some Chalices I like, I enjoy playing, but for the most part, they're the weakest part of Bloodborne in a way. It adds infinite replay value, but yeah, even though this game is bigger and you have a lot of big places that are just open places with nothing in them, and then you just walk for a couple of minutes, I'd say it's still better than the Chalice dungeons to make the game bigger this way. Okay, now in terms of why I say this is a sort of a backwards version of Elden Ring 2, is because a lot of the stuff, I guess, if you play Elden Ring, I played Elden Ring first, then Dark Souls 3. A lot of enemies have been recycled, like the crabs, the rats, the dogs. Some of these enemies, I guess they always get recycled. A lot of the weapons, they just get recycled. And yeah, that's why it also feels like, Bloodborne does more of its own thing. And this is just like an Elden Ring without the horse. Okay? Some of this stuff too, like I don't know if this was a first in this game or they existed in older games too, but things like the arrows and the damn crossbows, these sort of weapons, like these ranged weapons, they made a lot more sense in Elden Ring, where you can just sort of the areas are actually big, you're out in the open, and then you can just hide, you can just shoot them with arrows from afar, from below. Like if they're below you, you're up a mountain and there's enemies down there, you can just aim and shoot them with bows. It just made a lot more sense in that game, and I did enjoy doing tactics like that too. But in this game, it just seems like there's not much use of them. There's a couple of places where you could use the bows and crossbows to kill maybe a few difficult enemies from afar, but it's almost like they forced this interaction. And a lot of these interactions, they're from the DLC actually, so they thought, damn, crossbows and bows aren't very useful, so in the DLC, let's give the player some opportunities to use them. So that's my, I guess, thinking into that, my thoughts for that. What else is different, I guess, compared to Bloodborne and Elden Ring? People say, I guess, one of the biggest highlights about this game, they say, Dark Souls 3, it's got the best bosses, better bosses than Bloodborne, Elden Ring, whatever. I don't really agree with that. I heard of that a lot when I watched, other comparison videos and people talking about these games, and I was expecting, okay, maybe that's true, but it ain't really a groundbreaking difference. I mean, yeah, this game has awesome bosses, but not so awesome that they just outclass the bosses from Bloodborne or Elden Ring, I'd say. All games, they all have their amazing bosses. So it wasn't anything like that groundbreaking or revolutionary that I've noticed. I mean, a lot of the bosses in Bloodborne are also very awesome and very unique. So I think in that sense, all of the games, they're unique in terms of bosses, There's awesome bosses in each game, okay? Now, in terms of difficulty, this is another thing that I've noticed, people saying that this is like an easier game than Bloodborne. Oh no, the other way around, like Bloodborne is one of the harder Souls games, and I don't agree with this. Bloodborne, there's difficult parts in Bloodborne, but I would say I struggled with Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring a lot more than Bloodborne. Maybe it's just the nature of these games. They're ultimately more similar. It's more important for you to just dodge and I guess learn the boss's patterns. With Bloodborne, you can just sort of take advantage of the rally system and just trade hits, just go aggro. And I don't know, maybe that gameplay makes more sense to me. But yeah, with Dark Souls 3, they got the infusion system too for you to just change up your weapons based on your stats. So if you want to make a weapon scale better with strength, you want to make it scale better with dexterity, you can do stuff like that. I'm not really sure if I should say this is a better system than the gemstone system in Bloodborne. Both of these systems, they got their pros and cons. I mean, just figuring everything out with the infusions too, it can be pretty annoying. You got to use like calculators. It's just a lot of stuff you got to figure out. And you got to spend money to make the infusions too. The damn gemstone system, like in Bloodborne, was also pretty annoying, especially with, they put a lot of the alternate weapons for the games in the chalice dungeons. And if you don't like do online stuff and you can put the root chalices, can't really get those easily. In terms of online for this game, I mean, it's the covenant system. Depending on your covenant, you're gonna fight and team up with different players depending on their covenant. Speaking of that, one of the things I really hate about this game is that it's the biggest pain in the ass game to 100% trophy compared to Bloodborne and even Elden Ring. Like, because I don't play online, I gotta collect all the covenant items to rank up and upgrade the covenants. And you gotta kill certain enemies over and over. Some of them have really, really low drop rates for those covenant upgrade items. So you just gotta waste a lot of time if you want to 100% trophy the game. It also, I think it's the only game that forces you to just, it is, yeah. This game forces you to go into New Game Plus at least 2 more times, whether you like it or not. Because one of the trophies, like the rings and the greeting animations, what are they called? They're called something different. In order to get all of those, you have to go to New Game Plus. You can't just get all of them in one playthrough, which is really annoying because in Bloodborne, you know, what I like to do is I like to make a build and then instead of going to New Game Plus, make another new game and make a different build sort of thing. I mean, I did go to New Game Plus in Bloodborne just to get the like trophy endings pretty quickly. I went all the way to like New Game Plus 4 or something. But I like making new files as opposed to just going to New Game Plus. But this game, you gotta do it. You gotta get all the rings. And then in New Game Plus, you gotta get like the stronger versions of the rings. You gotta have all of them together if you want to get the ring trophy. Same for like the spells, same for like the greeting animations. If you want to get all that, you want 100% trophy the game, you gotta do that. And that's bullshit. Like even in Elden Ring, with one playthrough, you can get most of the trophies besides the ending trophies. And yeah, that's also, it can be Elden Ring a pain in the ass to 100% trophy the game because the game is hella big. But I'd say Dark Souls is worse. Now, what else makes this game stand out from Bloodborne? I mean, I'm not gonna lie, this is a very great game. It has a reputation for a reason. So just me trying to make this a review, trying to make it so if this is a good game, it's kind of pointless. It is a very excellent game. It is a very excellent game, especially when you compare that it came in 2016. It really holds up well. But it really just makes me playing this so much. And you know, when you play something so much, eventually you kind of get sick of it. It sort of revitalizes my interest for Elden Ring again. Just go play it one more time. Or for the first time at least. But yeah, I do think Elden Ring is it's better. I mean, it does most of the stuff this game does better. I mean, every game is going to have its unique bosses, its unique areas that are exclusive to that game. But in terms of the loot, in terms of the better game overall, between this and Elden Ring, I'd say Elden Ring is the better game, more impressive game. In terms of the DLC in this game too, I played the Fire Fades edition, so I did have access to both of the DLCs. And my god, those DLCs, they're fucking annoying. I did get used to the snow area eventually. You sort of figure out where you're supposed to go and figure out what you're supposed to do. But in the beginning, I was really annoyed. I'm thinking to myself, what kind of level design is this? Difficult as fuck enemies and lots of them too. Big widespread areas filled with enemies. It was rough. And then the Drek Heap in the Ring City, even worse. But I figured those out too. Man, that spot with the arrows, those like dudes shooting arrows at you and then you gotta go kill the big dude that makes them appear. That was a pain in the ass. But once you know the route to deal with that, then it's not as difficult. Okay, so I don't know, man. I mean, all of these games are awesome. I think always Bloodborne, it's just gonna make the most sense to me. I wish they'd make another one. Elden Ring, just way too good. Even though the combat, I prefer Bloodborne's combat in terms of scale, overall impressiveness. You know, Elden Ring is just way too good. And yeah, it just feels like this game it does feel like a predecessor to Elden Ring in many ways. As far as exploration and NPC quests goes, obviously Elden Ring is going to be number 1 for exploration. The game is way too big. Between all the like castle dungeon areas and the open world areas, it has the most shit for you to collect and find out. Compared to Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3 is better in that regard. Bloodborne, it has fewer NPCs and just very simple short quests. Once you figure them out, they're pretty easy to remember. This game, it has a lot more quests, a lot more complicated quests, so that's also pretty annoying too. And once again, it kind of forces you to go to New Game Plus, because some of the quests, they do involve, trophies and shit. Like there's a certain greeting you gotta get from the yellow finger, so, if you do that, it messes up Iris's, Isiris's quest. The Dark Moon bitch, whatever the hell her name is. So, there's little things like that. There's just a lot of stuff in this game that I don't see how anybody could figure out if they didn't look up a guide or something. Like how to just not miss quests, not mess up quests, not miss hidden items. It can be kind of annoying. Bloodborne, it was like that to a much lesser degree. I didn't play Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, but I have heard people say that between these three games, Dark Souls 3, they made it a lot more linear, and some people didn't like that. But I don't really think, I guess, yeah, you could technically say it, but there's so many different optional routes for exploration and different ways for you to go about areas. Like, you can do the Farron area before you do the Cathedral of the Deep area, and vice versa. If you got the DLC, then you got that option too. You can just sort of go into the DLC as soon as you get into the Cathedral of the Deep, and maybe cheese your way, run through enemies and try to get a bunch of broken stuff and broken weapons. You can do stuff like that. There's a lot of other hidden areas that are completely optional that you're gonna have to unlock. So to say this game is just very linear, I think it's too much of a harsh criticism. It's a really big game, a lot of different routes. Yeah, you do kind of have to follow a certain structure at the end of the day, kill the Lords of Cinder. But it's big. There's a lot of areas to explore, a lot of different areas and hidden areas for you to go to. Oh, and before I forget, there's also one more thing I gotta mention that I really disliked about this game. The kick system. So, in this game, FromSoftware thought if you just press your weapon attack along with the analog stick, you make a little kick attack and to just knock back the enemy. But that wastes stamina and it takes up your move, and it's so annoying. It fucked me up so many ways, because a lot of the times when you're attacking, you're just mashing the R1 trying to kill enemies. You're pretty much moving the analog stick too. So I'm trying to just hit with my weapon as normal, and sometimes I just do the little kick by accident. I would just waste stamina, and then I can't finish off the enemy. I gotta roll back and heal because they hit me or something, and it just messes up the whole fight, and it's so annoying. I'm glad they got rid of it in Elden Ring, because it's just a bullshit mechanic. I see very little use for that, and it just gets in the way, especially because of the button configuration to do it. So I think I covered everything. Oh, and the spells. Okay, so you can make spell builds in this game too, Dark Souls 3, but pyromancies were strong. I did a pyromancy build, and a lot of those chaos fire and dark pyromancies from Carla, they're pretty strong. But the sorcery stuff was shit, at least from my experience. The miracle attacks were also kind of ass. The miracles that let you heal, they're good, but the miracles that attack, I didn't find them very impressive at all for the costs. And I had a dedicated sorcery character with high faith and intelligence, and besides the pyromancies, they didn't do that much damage. That's my experience, and it ultimately does feel this game like kind of a shittier sorcery game compared to Elden Ring. Once again, the sorceries in Elden Ring were stronger, more of them. I think this game does have some sorceries that weren't available in Elden Ring, the way they work. But once again, they did recycle a lot of them from this game to Elden Ring. So just another aspect that makes this game feel like just a predecessor to Elden Ring, and a kind of a lesser one at that. But to conclude this little long-ass rant, this game was very good. I was pretty impressed and surprised by it, especially because I held off from playing it for so long for a reason. When I played Bloodborne and absolutely loved it, I was thinking to myself, should I get Dark Souls 3? But it is going to be kind of a different animal. I was aware that it does play differently than Bloodborne, even if they were the same developer. Even though they're FromSoftware games, they have the notable gameplay differences. So I held off on it for quite some time. Elden Ring, I didn't hesitate too much to buy that, and I really enjoyed it. And then I thought to myself, if I enjoyed Elden Ring, I'm gonna probably enjoy Dark Souls. And in the end, I got this game too, because I've been waiting for so long for another Bloodborne, and they're not gonna give it to us, damn it, at least anytime soon. It's been over 10 years, and I'm glad it worked out. I mean, I got this game relatively cheap for brand new, Fire Fades Edition too, so I got all the DLCs basically for free. And there's a lot of game you get with Dark Souls 3 for sure. Currently, I'm trying to do the trophies, 100% trophy this game. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it because it's a pain in the ass. Like, if I fucking mess up in New Game Plus, the like greeting shit from Yellowfinger, then fuck it, I'm not gonna try again. However, I must say that if I were to rank these games, I wouldn't put Dark Souls 3 ahead of Bloodborne or Elden Ring. Elden Ring is the better game than this. If you're only gonna play one of them, I'd say Elden Ring. And Bloodborne, of course, I love Bloodborne. And like, even if, let's say, you're not as hardcore of a lover of Bloodborne like me, even though most players that played it are, it has an advantage over both Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3 because it kind of does its own thing. These games don't replicate. There's very few things that I'd say Bloodborne does worse than Dark Souls 3. Like the fast travel system, of course, and maybe the chalice dungeons being kind of boring eventually. What is worse for Bloodborne though is because it's more of an action game than an RPG game, you don't got a lot of the, enemies that drop stuff. They're usually just gonna drop vials or maybe a few shards, maybe some gemstones. But if you like collecting stuff and grinding, trying to get stuff from enemies, looting enemies, then Dark Souls 3 has that in spades. Bloodborne doesn't. But then I'm thinking to myself, if they did something like this in Bloodborne, it maybe wouldn't have worked out as much, because you got the trick weapons. You're not really meant to just go around and find a bunch of random ass weapons like this game. So maybe it's a bit unfair to compare them like that, but it is a difference. I did enjoy collecting stuff in this game, and you don't got that as much in Bloodborne. Alright, and rant. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, share the video with your friends, and I'll see you guys next time. What